Weebs, guess what? It's that time. It's March 31st, and Becca and I just saw Ghost in the Shell.
Woo!
If this is your first time listening to the podcast, stop and go listen to a different episode.
This is not the episode to start listening to us on. No.
Yeah, so as promised, we went and saw Ghost in the Shell. Sorry, just computer. And,
no
yeah, that happened.
It did happen.
We've talked about it a lot on the podcast before. It's probably my favorite anime movie.
I feel like Ghost in the Shell is one of our most talked about
yeah, it probably is.
franchises in general, besides maybe Naruto and how much we hate it. But
yeah, the Ghost in the Shell thing's my fault.
I think Ghost in the Shell is like one of 3 of like our top favorite things to talk about, though.
Yeah,
so.
The other one's probably Kill la Kill, which is also my fault.
Well, but then at the same time we have Yuri on Ice, which is Veda's fault.
Super Lovers.
So, Super Lovers is my favorite to bitch about. But anyway, we went and saw Ghost in the Shell. That was exciting.
Yeah, we're recording both in the same room in real life, so that's a fun change.
It's really weird seeing your face while we record.
Yeah, and there's 2 cats here too.
Yeah, and Adam, but he refuses to give us his opinion. Damn
that's
greedy.
Fine.
Anyway.
So yeah, I guess what was your initial reaction to it?
It's definitely... It's a very Americanized version of the Ghost in the Shell story. I have only watched the original movie because Liam forced us. Thank you, Liam. And
you're welcome.
So I don't know a lot of the outside context from like the TV shows and the other movies. But this feels like they just Americanized the shit out of it. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's safe to say.
Yeah.
It smells like freedom, this movie here.
With
in the most American sense possible.
Yeah, like...
That's a bad joke.
I want to say with fish sauce or
what's
Asian
your,
sauce. Something racist. Fuck, kill me.
What's your rating for it? I gave a % rating on the Facebook page, so...
I'd probably give it... Honestly, like, as a standalone movie, like, sci-fi movie, I would probably give it a solid, like, 7.5. But comparing it to the original property, it's probably a solid, like, 4 to 5 out of 10. Because it's just... It feels like it strays so much. But as a standalone science fiction movie, like, if they had... taken the themes of this movie and made their own original movie, and it kind of looked like this, it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Kind of my conclusion with the whole thing, just to jump to the end, is that this movie had a lot of potential, but the thing holding it back was that they were just sticking so hard to all the Ghost in the Shell, like, iconic scenes and franchise stuff. So, yeah. Like, it could have been a pretty good, like, science fiction or cyberpunk movie that was, like, definitely took a lot from Ghost in the Shell, but because they were, like, mushing so much from not just the original Ghost in the Shell movie, like, they're taking stuff from the sequel movie and the spin-off TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it was just a trash fire, to quote you from, like, a different episode.
Well, and, like... it almost feels like they spent a lot of time winking at people that are familiar with the anime context of everything. There's definitely shots that I was like, this is referencing a shot from a TV show or a movie that I haven't watched, but I see what they're doing with it. But that also makes it feel really transparent, and it felt like they were winking way too much. Like, if it were an actual person winking, they would look a little bit like they were having a seizure with the winking.
That's a good analogy.
But, yeah, I guess
if anyone's just, like, sitting in their car listening to this right now, deciding whether to drive to the theater or not, like, don't go see it. My rating of it is 51 out of 100, so...
See, I would disagree with you. I think go see it on a cheap night. Or, like... The theater that we went to does, like,
yeah, I guess
if you go...
cheap theaters wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, or, like, an early morning matinee where you don't have to spend the full price.
If you like watching, seeing cool visuals on a big screen, It's like that's why I gave it a passing grade, just because like the visuals were decent. But
it looked really nice.
Something like Ghost in the Shell, you need more. Like you were saying, like there was lots of stuff where they were winking to people who had seen the anime, but like if their target audience is the people who had seen the anime, like they did so much stuff that like would piss fans of the anime off, like it did with me.
Well, it just kind of felt like they hodgepodge scenes together to make a somewhat kind of cohesive storyline. The best way I can phrase it is like it feels like this is Major's like origin story, but and I know we've discussed this a little bit prior. It feels like her origin story, but we're not really here specifically for her. At least I'm not. I'm here for like the psychological discussion, or not the psychological, the philosophical discussion about like what is technology and how is it impacting us and how does it impact our identities and everything. And I feel like there wasn't enough talking about that.
There's a bit of that, but it was like blocked with too much other stuff going on.
Yeah, or it just kind of felt like the bit that was discussed was kind of fed to you.
Yeah, it was like, oh, here's our philosophical line, and it's really obvious.
Yeah, and they made it like even Major's whole like, oh, I'm not who I think I am. It just felt really heavy-handed, and like they had the scene from the original movie where she goes swimming in the river.
Oh yeah, that part.
And I was like, this is completely not what that scene was.
They were missing a really important part of that. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Because, the original one, she wears, like, an air tank or something so she can float back up to the surface. Because part of the reason why she dives is because her body's a robot, so it'll sink. So she likes experiencing that danger, but they didn't address that at all in here.
It felt a lot like this will be a really cool shot, but they didn't. Yeah,
there's some sick jellyfish.
They didn't make it fit like within the actual plot of what was being told. And I seem to remember in the original movie when she comes up and the dude with the eyeballs, I can't remember his fucking name, and he was my fucking favorite character in the original. And
he was like, I mean, he looked alright. I don't know why he had an accent, but
in the movie, his accent like came and went. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like one minute he's Australian, the next minute he's American, and I was just like, please, just pick one.
Oh, I guess we should say before we get any further, we won't get into spoiler stuff until a certain point in the episode. So if you're worried about spoilers, don't worry. We'll give a spoiler warning.
Yeah, we'll give you a shout out. But yeah, there's the scene where she's coming up from swimming, and just the entire conversation they have together is nothing like the conversation they had in the original movie. Yep. And I was like, but that gave context to why she's so pissed off in the end. Like, god damn it. I thought it was interesting that we got to see kind of his origin story with his alterations and stuff.
The origin story of just his eyes.
Yeah, just his eyes. Nothing else about him matters except his haircut. I'm really impressed with his haircut.
Yeah, no, they got his look done well. Like the aesthetics of the movie were pretty solid.
Yeah,
for the most part. They have like all those big projections going on in the city, which is like, I don't know. There's a lot of different interpretations of cyberpunk. Like some cyberpunk, it's like, oh, there's like technology everywhere and everything's like a sensory overload, and then some cyberpunk is more like the original Ghost in the Shell where everything's like super grungy.
Yeah, and
this one had some grungy moments, and I thought those ones looked the best. It
felt a little cleaner than the original Ghost in the Shell, right? Like just the atmosphere. I kind of liked the projections. I liked the way they designed the city, but it reminded me a lot of Blade Runner.
Yeah, and that's fair. Blade Runner was like Ghost in the Shell is like arguably influenced by Blade Runner as well. And
it just felt like they took ideas that everyone recognizes as cyberpunk and just like did that. I really like the look of it all. Like when you have the geisha dolls, which we see in the trailer, I think they look really cool. And I thought the cityscape looked really cool. The visuals looked really, really great. Like, that was all done very well. It all comes down to me to, like, the story and, I guess, like, the general themes that are discussed.
I think I already said this, but visuals were good. That's why I gave it a passing grade. It needs, especially with something like Ghost in the Shell, it needs more than visuals.
Well, and I kind of felt like it needed, like, the visuals had to be a given that they would be quality, or this film just kind of fails on a lot of different levels, because there's a lot of plot aspects that rely heavily on good graphics, you know what I mean? Like, the suit and everything like that. So, I don't know, want to get spoilery because I want to bitch about that stuff.
If you care about spoilers, you can stop listening now, but thanks for listening. I kind of like, I don't want to say I regret seeing the movie, but I was happy to see it so I could put out this review for you beloved listeners. So thanks for that.
Everything we do for you, except the stuff we do for ourselves because we're self-centered assholes.
And we know Leah and Veda wanted to come but couldn't join us, but that's okay.
Yeah, I guess we could mention positive vibes to Leah because she's writing a test today, and Veda's on the other side of the pond in merry old England. So
enjoy your bangers and mash.
Yeah, and your tea. Say hello to the Queen for us.
Okay, spoiler time?
Yes, let's get into the spoilers.
So what's like the most triggering thing for you in this movie?
Honestly, okay, so one of my most favorite parts in the original film is when she finally meets the puppet master and they become a new identity in move to evolve. Yeah,
because the puppet master's like, you know, he's not human. He doesn't. Well, he isn't a he. He doesn't really have a gender.
Yeah,
and that's what makes him so scary.
Yeah, and like part of that story to me was about how the human species is kind of leading their own evolution through technology. And then in this film, they take that really cool moment and they set it up, and then they don't follow through. And I was like, so did they become a new? No, she's still just her. But that was the whole fucking point.
Well, we should. So the puppet master is really the puppet master combined with Kuze, who's like a guy from the second season of Ghost in the Shell. He's the villain of the second season of Standalone Complex, who has like a background with the Major. And so, like, in this new movie, both of them are kind of like these, like, rebellious teens that were captured by the scientists and then, like, experimented on. And I guess this is the most trigger part with me. And I was, like, pretty surprised that they put this into the movie.
It seems so out of place.
Yeah, at a certain point, like, the Major kind of, like, goes rogue and then finds out part of her real identity. And she finds her mom, and her mom is this Japanese,
her brain's mom.
Her brain's mom was this like Asian lady. I'm assuming Japanese.
I feel like
oh yes, I had a daughter named Motoko.
I feel like it's very heavily insinuated, if not like said straight out, that she's Japanese.
Yes. So the Major in the start of the movie, her name's Mira, and then you find out later that like before she got put in the body, her name was Motoko Kusanagi, and it was like. So there's a Japanese teen that got captured and then put in a body that looked like Scarlett Johansson. I was like, I didn't think they'd have the balls to do that.
Well, it feels like they're like, you want to see what whitewashing is? This is whitewashing, and then that's what they fucking did.
y'all thought we were gonna play it safe.
like it feels. I didn't like that. It felt really blatantly like we don't give a fuck what you... Because that was a large part of the controversy around making Ghost in the Shell as a live action to begin with, was the choice to choose Scarlett Johansson, a white American actress, to play Major, who's Japanese in the film. And like some of the trailers I felt kind of tried to show that they were bringing more diversity in, which they did, but I feel like it still was a lot of white
most
people.
Of the important characters were Caucasians, true.
And the fact that she's like it's just like that's exactly what whitewashing is saying that people's perspectives can only come from a white body, and that pissed me off. So
yeah, the same thing how Kuze when he was a rebellious teen writing his anti-technology manifestos in the lawless zone. They stated he was his name was Hideo, so and him and the Major had a connection. So then and they actually like got to the point where like both of them are kind of laying there in the ruins after the spider tank has been defeated in like a less than cool way than it was in the original. So they're sitting there and he's like, we can merge. I have like my own network created where my ghost can live. He's like, we can start the next part of the evolution. And the Major's like, I'm not ready to leave this world yet. And I was like, oh, come on. And then Kuze was like, my ghost will always live inside of you. And then he gets sniped in the face. I was like,
just so...
what?
Well, and he gets put in a clearly like Russian-y type body. Like,
Yeah,
those
well, yeah,
kind
he
of
gets put in a
implications.
white body too. Yeah.
I also, as we were driving, his voice sounds a little bit like Stephen Hawking. I noticed as well, which I suppose is to suggest
Well, yeah, they're
he's
giving
kind
him
of a
the
failure.
like edgy, glitchy
Yeah,
voice.
but he kind of looked. He reminded me. Okay, he
Well,
reminded
he
me
looks like the
of
Kuze in the second season of Standalone Complex,
But
minus all the damage.
some of like the darker shots of his face and everything, with the way his hair is falling over his face, reminded me a lot of Sephiroth from
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
the fuck
I get
that movie is.
Final Fantasy
Yes.
Advent Children.
Just like too edgy for me, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, he was pretty hashtag edgy.
And like I feel like they well, because we're in the spoiler zone, they set him up to be like the quote unquote enemy, and then of course the enemy is authority and the people who have all the power to begin with.
The enemy's the company man.
See, it felt like parts of this movie felt like really relevant right now, because we have like just within this past week they've had the American government decide that it's okay for the internet service providers to log and sell people's internet information, stuff like that.
Yep.
So some of the conversations that are coming up in this are really interesting. In, do you actually have control over the things that you're doing on the internet, stuff like that? Is Major still in control of the body, even though technically the body is made by some evil corporation, which is just so fucking cliche. Like, I'm so pissed off about that.
Like, those messages in the original movie are still relevant. That's what makes it still hold up.
Yeah.
For this new one, like, all of those messages are kind of crowded in with this generic revenge plot.
Well, that's exactly it. It just feels too cliche, and it almost makes me feel like they're like, the audience is stupid. We're just gonna spoon feed it to them a little bit. And I mean, if you've watched the original Ghost in the Shell,
it's not spoon-fed.
Yeah, really. Like, you gotta fucking think about it a bit yourself. And
it's the thinking man's movie, as Digibro said it.
and I feel like this one, they're like, let's take a thinking man's movie and tell people exactly what they're supposed to think in the end.
Which is wrong.
Well, it's just
one
annoying.
Side note, so the Chief Aramaki is played by a old Japanese dude. He kind of looked like the guy who played the like villain teacher guy from Battle Royale. I almost recognize like some of his face twitches, but I'm not sure.
And I loved his hair.
Yeah, his hair was.
Everyone looked super anime.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, some of the Yakuza guys looked pretty cool. But so Chief Aramaki, he spoke in Japanese. No one else did, and like I got this like, oh, it's the future, and like near the beginning, there's one guy who said like, oh, my daughter is 4 years old and she learned how to speak French in like a few seconds.
Yeah, just by saying the sentence, right?
I'm assuming like anyone with augmentations can just like listen to any language.
I kind of wanted more,
but because it's like Americanized, it's like he speaks Japanese but everyone else just talks English back to him.
Yeah. I kind of...
So, yeah, mixed feelings about that.
I wish they had more discussion about the whole idea of the augmentation and modifying themselves.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cause like I seem to remember eyeball dude with the funny haircut. Fuck, I can't. Mato. Yeah, Bato. Because I can never remember his name, but like I seem to remember him being against augmentation and kind of forced into it when he had his accident. And the original movie, he just starts off where he has the eyeballs, so we don't know him before.
Yeah, that's because like in the source material, like in Standalone Complex, he comes from. Like, he was in the army before. Mm-hmm. He was, like, involved in, like, World War III or something. He was in this group called the Rangers. So, like, he had those eyes for a long time. And then, like, the Major had, like, recruited him to Section 9, like, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And, like, there's even, like, plot points in Standalone Complex that brings, like, the Rangers back in. Like, there's a scene where they're getting chased by a bunch of people, but then he, like, reveals himself, and all the other people reveal themselves, and they have, like, the same eyes as him, and they're like, oh, you're a Ranger, too. I mean, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I just felt like it would have been nice if they had talked a little bit more about the whole augmentation thing and where it fit within the society.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that plays a large part in what happened to Major being such a shocker. But
what did you think of the visuals of like the rebirth scene at the beginning? I guess another spoiler, she's not entirely cybernetic. She has a human brain that's put inside a cybernetic body. So
yes,
that's what the movie opened with, and I was like, right there, I was like, I don't know.
See, I was just like, it's the Americanized version of the birth scene to me.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff felt like it was a little bit trying to recreate shots from the anime, and then at the same time taking their own spin on it. Parts of it almost reminded me of Under the Skin.
Yeah,
and stuff
that was a really good... That's what you should watch. After you watch the original, you should watch Under the Skin, which is a better sci-fi movie with Scarlett Johansson.
See, and yeah, Under the Skin, I feel like it's really slow for me, but that's a whole other conversation. So that was
the slowness.
It felt like a lot of the imagery and like the use of the robots and everything just felt so technologically cyberpunky and stuff like that. I still really prefer the music of the original movie.
Yeah, no, the music in this one had a few good moments, but it
wasn't the same, right?
Like the action scenes in the original, including the action scenes in Standalone Complex, there's a lot more like build up and tension, and the violence has more impact. But the violence in these ones, like, it all moves really fast, and then the music is just like adds more stuff going on, so there's so much happening all at once, and it kind of dumbs it down.
Yeah, well, and that was kind of what I was worried they were going to do, was they were going to try to like speed up the pace of the story. But I find that in the original movie where things slow down, that's kind of where you have the time to think about what's happening to everybody. And
and the parts where there's like no music at all add tension. Yeah,
and this one it did feel a lot like a regular action movie where it's just like go 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 go, and you only really slow down for like those token moments of drama. But I feel like the original song just has such an iconic feel to it.
Yeah.
That there's no way to top it really. So
yeah, no, the opening sequence started and I'm like, oh, this is. I hate it but I'm pretty biased towards that first one. It's really good. Yeah, and I think this was along with the rest of the movie by itself, this was fine, but when comparing it to the original, it just. See, I feel like even if I or wasn't such a big fan of Ghost in the Shell, it would seem like this one has too much going on at once. Like I said before, this had potential to be a good cyberpunk or science fiction movie, but it was like focusing too hard on like all the Ghost in the Shell stuff it had to reference. That held it back in the long run. Well, and you even almost get that when you're looking at them like in the cityscapes of this unnamed city that they're in. There's just so much going on, you can't get your bearings, which I think they could have really played into. I think they could have like messed with the whole idea of like what is reality and what can you trust and what can't you trust, which I feel like they kind of started to go into with the glitches that were happening to Major, but perhaps they're hoping to hold that storyline over for like a sequel, or they just didn't want to get into it. Yeah, I guess with the Kuze thing, I forgot to say earlier, like he'd probably already stored his ghost on his network, so he could probably come back. Which could, like, doesn't it kind of feel like, especially with the ending? So the ending is she does the whole like falling off the building and the whole like hand wipe and she fades out. Doesn't that feel totally like Neo flying into the sky at the end of the Matrix? Don't worry, there's going to be a sequel. It just might take a couple years to you. Like, well, I mean, it didn't quite feel like the Matrix, but that's because like the Ghost in the Shell Arise series ends with that shot. Yeah. Both Standalone Complex shows ends with that shot. Like, that's just the shot everyone tries to do, I think. But yeah, I mean, who knows? If the movie makes enough money, there probably will be a sequel, unfortunately. Well, but they've used up like so many of the good parts from so many shows, so it's like, what do they do for the next one? Well, and it felt a lot like, even in watching this, it felt like it was referencing, I got a lot of like Aeon Flux vibes and Blade Runner, and like, just kind of, it just felt sort of like mid-level cyberpunk technology discussion sci-fi to me. Like, they didn't go deep enough, and it looked good, but they didn't go deep enough, so it isn't a challenging movie, and I kind of wanted it to be a little bit challenging. Yeah, one other small nitpicky thing. So, Chief Aramaki, his character is, like, pretty decent, but then, and Togasa, they kind of kept him the same, where he's, like, the one guy who, like, states that he's like, oh, I like being all human, I don't like to cybernetically augment him myself, even though he only has, like, a couple lines. But then one part of his character is like he has the revolver that's like old school, and that kind of matches his like he's not like anti-technology, he just doesn't like it for himself, just like how he likes to use the revolver just because that's his preference. But then for some reason this one they gave the chief the revolver just because he was playing like the badass old Japanese dude who shot the bad guy at the end. That scene was also pretty, like, unnecessary.
That revolver felt like they were just putting something in, though. Like, it just felt like an Easter egg. So I was like, obviously that revolver's important to somebody, because the shot was so cliche and like, oh, here's a revolver, linger on it for a moment. So I was like, that obviously is important to people that know more about the series.
Yeah,
but it means nothing to me.
Shooting the bad guy at the end was like, it should just be like, you're under arrest, you're going to jail. But it's like,
that bugged me.
Slow motion, getting shot, falling into the pond.
So that bugged me just in regards to like the general storyline of like what they're doing in this world, because isn't Major's part of a anti-terrorist group,
like public security section 9 is what they're,
so their first response is to shoot somebody? Like, shouldn't they be being like, you're under arrest, we're taking you in?
I mean, the other guy did draw a gun, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough, but it felt
very Hollywood.
Everything felt very gun happy. Like, there's a lot of fucking guns in this movie. And that ending, I was just like, but I thought you were supposed to serve and protect everybody. That's kind of like doing the exact same thing the bad guys were doing, which is just killing people under your own whim.
There is, like, you know, the opening scene of the first one, there's the guy who's, like, gets shot in the head and his head, like, explodes. And that happens, like, there are some pretty gun-happy moments in the show as well.
It felt like it. And then the spider tank. Spider tank is close.
The spider tank was fine, except for when they're, like actually saying, like, is the spider tank en route?
It just felt so fucking forced in. Like,
I'm gonna manually control the spider tank now to get my revenge.
In a different location, which felt totally Chappie-like, with, like, do you remember the
it's like,
moose?
that feels like unnatural, or, like, unnecessary.
Yeah, it just felt like it was putting Cutter, the director, into a larger role than, like, he didn't have the presence throughout the movie to pay off as that kind of villain. So it's not a... The more I think about it, the more I'm like, this movie's not good.
Yeah, Cutter wasn't a great villain. He didn't have a lot of humanity. He's just like, take rebellious teenagers and use them for science experiments for my company.
I think that's what this movie is suffering from, is it doesn't have that direct focus of, like, what it's trying to do here.
It needs to focus.
And that's what's causing it to suffer, is I come back to, like, is the puppet master / Kuze / Hido supposed to be the bad guy that we're worried about, or is this Cutter director who only really becomes the villain in, like, the last quarter of the movie? It just felt hodgepodgey forced, and I think if they tried to do just a live action reproduction of the original movie, people would just not be happy.
Oh, that probably would have been better than this, to be honest.
But that's kind of what I think I would have preferred to watch, and, like, have those nice long, like, drawn out silent parts where people are just looking and watching, and you, like, have time to absorb the atmosphere of the movie rather than being focused on, like, who's getting fucking shot in the head.
Yeah, like, after the water fight scene, I think, in the original, there's, like, a 3-minute and 40-second sequence that's just, like atmospheric shots with that main chant song playing, with no dialogue. And, you know, we're just missing that from sci-fi movies.
It just needs to slow down a little bit. I don't know. Like I said, it feels like it's just too all over the place to be cohesive.
Yeah, I mean, with all this, I'm not super surprised that all this happened.
I really liked the including of fish a lot, though, because, like, that was one of the other things.
Fish?
Okay, so
you mean, like, the billboard?
Well, when they're in, like, the geisha house, there's, like, super large holographs of, like, betta fish swimming behind them and stuff. It reminded me a lot of the opening scene.
There's a big aquarium
where there's the aquarium, and that was, like, one of the things that really stuck with me was why they fucking took this really pretty animation of, like, hand drawn fish and replaced it with shitty fucking CG. And it that felt like a bit of an homage or like an Easter egg that I'm like, I see what you did there. There was fish in the original and there's fish in this one. And I don't
Remember the fish?
Yeah, I just really like the fish, okay?
Remember the spider tank?
Remember when?
It reminds me of some complaints that people had about Rogue One. It's like, remember this Star Wars thing? Remember this Star Wars thing? Except Rogue One was, like, pretty decent.
Do you watch South Park at all?
Every once in a while.
So the past season has been, like, really harping on the whole nostalgia train with, like, remember when there's Chewbacca? Remember when this happened? Remember? And that's what this movie feels like. Remember when Major jumped off the building and went all transparent? We're gonna do that not once, but twice, bitches.
Yeah.
Any chance she gets to go invisible, it's gonna happen. Although I really liked her coat right before she like strips down. The coat she was wearing was really cool. And I was like, you just drop that coat every time you do this? Like, do you go back and get it, or do you just leave it there?
She just has a lot of coats. I mean, she's just Section 9. She doesn't care about coats. She'll just get a new fucking
entire
coat.
closet of the exact same coat. Like,
so in the original one, like, she has to, get naked to use the camouflage, just because it's
her skin, right?
Or it's a 14A or R-rated anime movie. She has to get naked to turn invisible.
No nipples.
Fuck you, that's what we're doing.
No nippies though.
Oh, there's nipples in the original.
Yeah, no,
but yeah, so then in standalone complex, like, she can just use the camouflage whenever. Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't have to be wearing a skin tight suit or be naked.
I feel like at a certain point they're like, perhaps because they're trying to focus more on having a more serious discussion about things, they're like, maybe the naked main character is just distracting from what we're trying to talk about.
Well, I think...
Is that too much? Is that giving too much credit?
Yeah.
I feel like it is.
I think this one, they're like, oh, well, we don't want it to be, like, 18-plus movie, so, like, we'll give her a skin-tight suit to wear, and it can have, like, the cool shimmering effect on it, which I think looks cool. But then, like, the suit isn't covering her head.
So how does her head go invisible?
Because, like, when the water chase scene, the guy has the cloak, he puts the hood on, and then he turns invisible.
It's because she's magic.
It's just one of many plot holes.
I feel like, I kind of got the feeling that, like, the suit that we see her wear is actually supposed to be her normal skin. But it's... but at the same time, it felt a little bit weird. There's scenes of her,
like, when she's wearing regular clothes.
Yeah, and you can actually see, like, her skin
looks normal.
Yeah, so it just felt like they didn't... There's a lack of consistency in how things work here, and it's kind of annoying. Maybe when she puts her hand up, it is all like, superstar, vanish, that something happens. I don't know.
I was pretty annoyed with, back to the spider tank. So, like, she does the thing where she, like, jumps on his back and, like, rips off the top of it. But in this one, she, like, actually, like, her arm still breaks, but she rips it off and the tank explodes in proper Hollywood fashion. But in the original, it's like she fails in ripping it off, then the tank picks her up by the head and almost crushes her. Yeah. But instead, in this one, the tank's, like, crushing Kuze's head.
I think they just really liked that visual of her sitting on the back of the tank and, like, pulling the back hatch off too much.
Yeah.
I thought she looked really cool in it, but at the same time, so there's an explosion earlier in the movie that just completely fucks her entire front up, and they make a point of having, like, a 5-minute long scene where she's just sitting on the table having, like, her origin story told to her, where, like, new bits are being added.
There's very inconsistent explosions.
Yeah. So instead, when she's on the fucking spider tank and it blows up, like, she's fine afterwards, except she's missing her arm, no arm.
But that was from, like, ripping it off.
Yeah, but I did really like that they had, like...
There's the explosion before where, like, the missile comes and, like, Kuze's, like, leg and arm get blown off and she's just a little dinged up.
Yeah, she's just, like... Well, you even see her, like, fly away from the explosion and she does, like, a little bit of a roll and then she's, like, away from the... Yeah, inconsistent explosions is the best way to describe it. But
yeah,
I feel like that just is kind of like the quality of this movie, though, where it's things will conveniently hurt the person when we need them to be hurt, and things will conveniently not hurt the person when they don't need to be hurt. And I don't know, plotty holes.
Like you were saying earlier, this one's very origin story heavy, and like it kind of got me thinking because like the new Spider-Man movie's coming out this year, and like. It looks like it's not going to be that origin story heavy, but it's going to be like the first standalone Spider-Man movie for the new guy.
Yeah. Oh shit, Tom Holland.
Right. Yeah. So it's like maybe like that one will be a good example of maybe if that one has a good example of like how to do a first movie with the character without being too origin story heavy.
I feel like in general, this is an issue with, like, the big blockbusters in American cinema in general. A lot of them have become focused on, like, the superhero-ish type trend, because obviously Marvel's doing well and DC's trying to wade in, and it just seems to be something that the general movie-going public wants to see more of. Where was I going with this? But you consistently have these origin stories, and, like, at a certain point we have to be like, we get it. Something happened, and now he's special and has special abilities. Can we just... I'm so tired of origin stories, because they're all just
Well, in Ghost of the Shell, the origin story isn't as necessary because what makes it good is like the discussions about technology and stuff.
Well, and that's exactly it. I didn't need an origin story about her. I kind of just wanted to be dropped in, and
the character, the Major, is good, and like we don't need the origin story. Just the character is enough, and like Section 9.
Yeah.
Because I'm surprised they had a shot of like Saito, the sniper character, at the end. He's got like the cord plugged into his eye that's going into the sniper rifle, which is a bit different than how it was in the show. But I'm surprised they even had him in there in the first place. They had Ishikawa, who was in the original movie, and they made him black, which was fine.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool. They gave him like the same hairstyle, and then they had some random black girl. Did she have an Australian accent? Maybe she was Kiwi.
I feel like everybody here had wavering accents. Like, that drove me... Like, I'm not very good at noticing accents, so when I'm sitting there and I'm like, wasn't he Australian, like, 2 scenes ago?
He sounded... Yeah, no, now that you remind me, he sounded like he was from New York, maybe in the first half of the movie, but then towards the end, I was like, nah, I'll just be whatever now.
I really didn't like his character in this Ghost, in this recreation, because he's so super, like, the good old boy.
Yeah, he was colder in the original.
Yeah, and I liked him colder. I liked him more of like the muscle that shows up and fucks shit up, and
he's less
has a bit of a brain in it. But
it's fleshed out a bit more.
But he didn't ever feel like the good old boy to me, you know? True. And in this one he really feels like that. And maybe it's just because he looks like Bucky Barnes from Captain America.
Well, and the whole dog thing, that's from the Ghost in the Shell Innocence movie. Isn't
there a robotic dog some point in this franchise? I thought there was.
No, not really. But in like Ghost in the Shell Innocence, he has a dog. What's the dog with the floppy ears?
Yeah, the Basset Hound.
He has a Basset Hound in that, and he's like super cold and reserved, but he like really cares for this dog.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like he cares for the people a lot and isn't cold, and he likes the dog.
Yeah.
But then he's got a line, it's like, I don't like people, but I like dogs. Or dogs like me.
Then he's kind of like the guy who goes around to everybody, like he's a little, like, team play.
He's like, can you feed the stray dogs? It's like, these dogs just always happen to be here on the street, but now one of them's in his apartment. It's like, hey, remember the dog from the movie, guys?
Wink, 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 wink. Yeah.
Remember this?
Remember when you had a dog? Now he's got a dog. So yeah, I really like his character so much in the original. I just, like I said, inconsistencies. So much.
They blew it. Well,
then I come back to the whole thing of, like, I think if you're watching this as a standalone sci-fi movie, it rates a little bit higher. But when there's this original content that you can go back to, like, people are going to enjoy this because it's a nice popcorn movie. You show up, you eat your popcorn, explosions happen, Scarlett Johansson runs around in a skin-tight suit, and the people that are going to go see this movie are happy in the end. But when you're a fan of the original, I think you'll be disappointed.
I feel like even, like, you know, people who watch a decent amount of sci-fi films or are just, like, slightly critical of films in general, even if they haven't seen the original, they probably would find a lot of holes in this.
Well, and I definitely think, like, there's the lean into the discussion about, we come back to, like, identity and technology and all that sort of stuff. There's, like, enough here to kind of whet your appetite, but then they don't follow through in discussing it more. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I really like that discussion and seeing the different...
A lot of people like that discussion.
Yeah, well, it's kind of relevant right now. We're living in a golden age.
In this day and age of social media...
Oh my gosh, I was
I'm so
actually...
tired of hearing that sentence.
Welcome to communications.
Yeah, you don't say.
Yeah. We're all about that social media. But, anyway.
Well, have we wasted enough time on Ghost in the Shell this week?
You know what? Adam enjoyed it. We took my significant other, Adam, who declined to be our extra voice on the podcast this week because he didn't feel comfortable.
That's fine.
But that's fine. He said he enjoyed it. And this is where I come back to. I think it's probably enjoyable.
That's why I gave it a passing grade. The visuals were fine.
Yeah, I think this is a shut up and just watch the shiny things happen in front of you movie.
Or just don't go and watch the original.
Which is always a good option.
It's only like $5 to rent it off iTunes or whatever other internet service of your choice. I had this presentation about it this week. So like going with your significant other to the theater, your tickets are about like $25. Then
you gotta get
snacks,
popcorn,
like extremely overpriced snacks.
Yeah, you gotta get the soda.
And then, so then if you're watching it from home, maybe pay $5 to rent it at most.
You don't have to put pants on.
And your snack budget can be like whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
It's like $10 will get you like plenty of snacks.
$10 is like 3 bags of chips here in Canada. Or you could go buy like a ton of chocolate, or you can get a single bag of popcorn at the theater.
You can drink alcohol too.
We might have gotten popcorn at the theater anyway. But alcohol, other substances of your choice, if you so choose. Yeah,
and it's like less than half the price of going to the movie theater.
And then wait for this one to come out on iTunes or whatever, and then watch it then, in the comfort of your own home. There was some pretty big explosions, though.
Inconsistent explosions.
Yeah.
Some explosions are like the extra hot kind.
Okay, no, wait a minute. When she first meets, the puppet master, what's his nose? Kuze.
Yeah, that's
she
the first
shoots him.
explosion.
She shoots him,
right? Oh, yeah, I forgot about it. She shoots him like 3 times
and he
in
doesn't
the chest.
He doesn't get damaged.
He's like, he kind of looks at her, and then she goes up to him, and she's like, what's that tattoo?
Yeah, but like,
that.
she takes shots at him, and he's just like, ha ha ha, your stupid bullets don't harm me. But an explosion just completely wrecks him.
Oh yeah, I forgot how inconsistent that was.
See, this is why you should always go back and think about the things you've watched.
Well, and there's a lot of scenes, even like the trailer for War of the Planet of the Apes that was happening before. There's a couple shots. It's like, hey, so he's pointing a machine gun in his direction. He just sprayed a bunch of bullets. There's like no way he could have not been shot.
At least once. Come on, guys.
It's like, geez, make this gun violence have a bit more impact. It's like the bad guys are always like aiming like at the ceiling when they're shooting,
or the floor, or themselves.
Cool.
I feel like we've just moved past gun violence in general.
The part when they're at the Yakuza club. And then he's like, oh, I just come here for the beer and the girls. And I didn't see any actual girls. There was no actual girls there.
They're all just robots.
No, there was holograms of girls. And then, like, holograms of kickboxing. I was like,
that was weird.
I'm like, man, this is Yakuza.
Weird.
I was like, for a Yakuza club, this is a shitty club.
I thought it looked really cool, though. It looked super sleek and, like, cyberpunky. It actually reminded me of the new Tron movie. Yeah, that was weird with the mechanical arm. Fuck. I love it when, beer, and they, like, give him a fucking, like, 2-liter bottle of beer.
Oh, that part, I hate it when that happens in shows and movies, because he's like, he walks into the bar, he's like, I want a beer. So he just gives him a beer. It's like, so in the future, is there only, like, one kind of beer? And, like, all beer is free, no one has to pay for alcohol?
Apparently not.
That part was pretty funny.
They just charge it to your account. Oh, my God. But it still looks so pretty. I don't know. I feel
like that happened in the last season of Dexter. Like, they're just, like, casually in a restaurant, and the waitress is like, oh, what would you like? I will have a beer, please.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Like,
the last season of Dexter was pretty not great.
Yes, 1 beer, please.
Yeah.
And then they just walk away, be like, yes, sir, 1 beer coming straight up.
I kind of feel like watching Blade Runner now. That's what this movie has left me feeling. I want to watch more cyberpunky stuff, but, like, gritty cyberpunk.
The book Blade Runner is based off of is pretty good too, and it's like a fast read. Well,
and there's a Blade Runner 2 coming out.
Yeah, we'll see that
Ryan Duckling.
See that one? It's like done by the director of Arrival, so that's one good sign, and it's gonna be a sequel, not a remake.
Yeah.
So cautiously optimistic for that one.
I don't know how I feel about it, but I should actually watch Blade Runner before I.
Have you not seen Blade Runner?
I've watched part of Blade Runner.
Well,
I might have fallen asleep at the time. We have it though. I just
get on it.
So much shit to watch.
Ain't that the truth? Okay, well, thanks for listening. If you made it this far, everybody. And I did have fun recording this review of it. It's been a nice thing to look forward to. So
yeah, well, especially with the little bit of the break that the podcast is going through, it still feels nice to like put something out and talk about this stuff, because
that's right.
Yeah, and I was really excited to talk about this one because I just kind of figured that we would.
There's been a lot of build up.
I feel like there wasn't any way we were going to come out and be completely happy, but I kind of I'm positively surprised in some ways.
It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Let down other ways. Shiny explosions, bright lights, good for injecting into the back of your head and not thinking.
Okay,
That's
well, on
why I
that note,
say.
good night, everybody.
Good night, listeners.